Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Claire Musgrave. As part of the memorial's commemorations to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, today we commemorate the Battle of the Atlantic. The fight for control of the Atlantic sea lanes raged for 6 arduous years, from the earliest days of the Second World War to the final hours of the conflict in Europe. Sir Winston Churchill called it the dominating factor all through the war. At its core was the Allied naval blockade of Germany, announced the day after the declaration of war, and Germany's counter-blockade. Both sides battled to control shipping and trade routes and the ability to project military forces across the seas. This struggle involved thousands of ships in more than 100 convoy battles and innumerable single-ship encounters in a theatre covering millions of square miles of the ocean. U-boat attacks were at first dramatically successful, as Germany also sent out its major surface warships and air power for a combined assault by air, surface, and submarine forces. The Royal Australian Navy's anti-submarine school, HMAS Rushcutter, was commissioned in February 1939, but with the Royal Navy in dire need of officers and sailors trained in anti-submarine warfare, these men soon found themselves on loan. By the end of 1943, over 1,000 Australian officers and ratings were serving in British ships. By May 1941, the Allies had developed a fully escorted transatlantic convoy system. A number of RAN vessels served on such escort duties. HMAS Australia began convoy escorted operations off the west coast of South Africa in May 1940 and remained in the Atlantic until February 1941, operating as far south as the Cape of Good Hope and as far north as the Arctic Circle. Eventually, German surface attacks on trade routes collapsed with the loss of the battleship Bismarck. Involved in the Bismarck action were 4 young Australians serving the British battlecruiser HMS Hood. Australians were involved in many other parts of the battle, from Australian air crews serving with RAF Coastal Command to the defensively equipped merchant ships sailors of the Royal Australian Navy Reserve. Each year, on the first Sunday in May, we remember those who died during the longest continuous military campaign of the Second World War. Today, we pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. We warmly welcome the family of Flying Officer Edward Lancelot Musgrave, whose story will be told shortly, and Group Captain Alan George, retired, representing the Air Force Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in
Thank you. If you're able, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flying Ed Officer Edward Lancelot Musgrave. Edward Musgrave was born in Sydney on the 26th of February 1918, the son of William and Nellie Musgrave. Known as Eddie at the outset of the Second World War, he was working as a salesman. Keen to join the Royal Australian Air Force, he enrolled in the reserve in August 1940. By the time he was called up, he had married his sweetheart, Jessie Hamilton, on the 11th of January 1941. The following month, on the 1st of February, the newly married 22-year-old enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force. After initial training, he mustered as a pilot, attending elementary flight training school in Narromine, and then service flight training school in Forest Hill. On the 13th of June 1941, Eddie Musgrave left Australia, bound for overseas service. Arriving in Canada, he was attached to the Royal Canadian Air Force and continued training in Uplands, Ontario. Awarded his flying badge in September, Musgrave embarked from Canada in early October 1941, bound for the United Kingdom. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,500 RAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, air gunners, and flight engineers who, throughout the course of the war, joined the Royal Australian Air Force squadrons based in Britain. In England, Musgrave joined No. 61 Operational Training Unit on the 12th of November 1941. Based at RAF Heston to the west of London, this unit trained single-seat fighter pilots using Spitfires and Hurricanes. With the base being close to London, it temporarily housed an illustrious roster of units, including RAF Polish fighter squadrons. Flying Officer Musgrave joined his first squadron on the 13th of January 1942. Number 137 Squadron, RAF, was a fighter bomber and ground attack squadron, one of only 2 squadrons to operate the 2-engined West Whirlwind 4-cannon fighter. Referred to as a whirly bomber, these specially adapted single-seater twin-engined Whirlwind bombers carried 2 250-pound bombs and 4 20mm cannons. Having been with his squadron for about a year, on the 10th of February 1943, Musgrave made a successful attack on a merchant vessel escorted by 5 armed ships in the English Channel. For his actions, he was later awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. The citation for his award gives the details. Although the night was very dark, Flying Officer Musgrave sighted the vessel sailing close into the shore south of Boulogne. Skillfully approaching the merchant vessel, he flew into attack but was frustrated by heavy fire from the coastal defences. Despite this, he persisted, and after diving through several searchlights from the shore, he attacked his objective, releasing bombs from a low level. Although his aircraft was damaged from the opposing fire from ships, he flew in safely to his base. Musgrave's actions were reported in the newspapers, along with noting that Flying Officer Musgrave's exploit draws attention to the way RAF and light naval forces have sealed the channel. So many ships have been sunk in recent months that targets are now few. A couple of months after his DFC had been officially presented and promulgated in the Gazettes, Musgrave took off in his Whirlwind aircraft in the early hours of the 18th of May 1943 to attack shipping off Gravelines in northern France. After making his first attack run, he reported that he was about to make a second attack. Nothing further was heard from him. Declared missing in action in September that year, his name appeared in a German list of the dead provided to the Red Cross. After his aircraft had crashed into the sea, his body washed ashore before being buried at Pienne-le-Guin, near Calais, France, where it lies today underneath the inscription chosen by his grieving family, "Duty nobly done, called home." Edward Musgrave was 25 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many of the stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer Edward Lancelot Musgrave, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today, and we thank you for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.